Hey guys, welcome to another Destiny Mythbusters, where today I want to clear the air about Weapons of Light, Melting Point, Shadowshot, and how they all end up interacting with each other. This time around, we don't really have a hypothesis that we're out to prove or anything like that, we just want to see how it all works. I tested on the Celebrant of Oryx in the Cosmodrome. I know that I'm overleveled for this guy, but the numbers all check out. I'm using a 290 Hake pulse rifle for reference. Each shot from my pulse rifle does 124 to the body and 185 to the head. Right off the bat, before we even start, it does not matter what your light level is, the duration and percentage of effects is the same for everything. First up, we'll test Shadowshot. To test, I simply fired the shot and checked how much more damage I did. I ended up doing 35% more damage on a per shot basis. I tested both Bloodbound and Black Hole. Bloodbound lasts 5 seconds and Black Hole lasts 8 seconds, but they both provide the same amount of a damage boost. Next, we'll test Melting Point. We punch and shoot and our damage goes up by 50%. Melting Point lasts for at least 6 seconds. I got some times where it lasted maybe half a second longer, but for our data, we'll say 6 seconds as that's the most consistent number. Next, we'll test Weapons of Light both with and without Illuminated, and with and without increased duration. Here's a chart of all the numbers. Basically, with Bastion, you go from 30 to 45 seconds in duration, and with Illuminated, you go from 25% increased damage to 35% increased damage. So let's start combining things now. First, we're going to combine Weapons of Light and Melting Point. We grab Weapons of Light, punch the guy, and our damage goes to 250 damage per shot. That's technically over a 100% increase in damage since we started with 124. But that doesn't add up. Shouldn't it be an 85% increase? Well, not necessarily, because the modifiers are not additive. Since one is a buff and one is a debuff, they end up having a multiplicative relationship, not an additive. We grab Weapons of Light for a 35% damage boost, bringing our shots from 124 to 167. Then with our new damage value of 167, we get a 50% increase on that from Melting Point. So 167 times 0.5 equals 83.5. Add that to 167 and you get 250.5 or 250 rounded, which is exactly what we are doing right now. Note that the order in which you apply buffs and debuffs does not matter. It works the same way. When I Melting Point the target, my damage goes from 124 to 185. Then I grab Weapons of Light, and because my damage is increased by 35% now, we take 185, multiply it by 0.35, get 64.75, add that to the 185, and we get 249.75, or 250 rounded. So the order in which the buffs and debuffs are applied does not matter. The same concept works for Weapons of Light and Shadowshot as well. Both of them stack in the same exact way, except Shadowshot just results in lower damage than Melting Point because of their different bonuses. So the final combo is Melting Point and Shadowshot stacked together, and this is where we get some interesting results. We apply Melting Point, we get our 50% damage bonus. We then apply Shadowshot and we go down to 167 damage. Melting Point and Shadowshot do not stack with regards to damage bonuses, and Shadowshot will take the priority over Melting Point. I'm not sure why Bungie decided to make them not stack. Maybe it was too powerful, maybe it has to do with the application of debuffs themselves. A theory as to why Shadowshot takes priority is that Shadowshot's overall effect, the damage boost and the tether, has a greater overall effect compared to just Melting Point's damage boost. So because of this new information, I have no reason to believe that you should not include Weapons of Light in any sort of damage rotation. Melting Point and Shadowshot should obviously be used one then the other, but Weapons of Light is always going to be helpful in tandem with either Melting Point or Shadowshot. So what does all of this mean for your boss damage and your team composition? Well, let's talk about the raid. The War Priest is not really a Melting Point friendly encounter. Applying Melting Point is not really practical, so if you have a Titan in your group, they should be Defender, although 2 is not hugely necessary. The only reason I think you should have 2 Defenders is because you're having problems with surviving damage from the adds or the boss, and the other Titan should use Blessing of Light. Most of the time you can get back your super before the next damage phase, that's why I don't think you need 2 Weapons of Light Titans. Otherwise, Black Hole Shadow Shots are obviously the ideal. It's the same thing with the Daughters of Oryx. Applying Melting Point is not practical. The Vessel of Oryx in the Oryx encounter is a good target for Melting Point, but it's not 100% needed, and Melting Point is not really practical in any other part of the fight. Golgoroth is a different beast, where applying Melting Point is very much practical. So how can you maximize your damage? I'm maybe going to do another video on a Melting Point build specifically on Golgoroth with Monte Carlo and Insurmountable Skullfort, so I'll save all of those deeper build points for later. For now, let's just talk about an average composition. Let's say you have 2 of each class for the raid. 1 Weapons of Light, 1 Melting Point, 2 Shadow Shots, and 2 Warlocks, but they're not relevant for the conversation. As long as you don't overlap the Shadow Shots and the Melting Points, you're going to be fine. However, Melting Point is going to come back much sooner than Shadow Shot. You're probably only getting 1 Shadow Shot per cycle per person. Drop Weapons of Light immediately wherever you find most comfortable. After everyone is in position, apply Melting Point. When you rotate to the next orb, refresh your weapons buff, then apply Shadow Shot. My group does the following. Whenever we knock down an orb on the right side, we use Melting Point. Whenever it's on the left side, we use Shadow Shot if we have them. You should definitely be using Simmering Flames as a Sunbreaker for this fight, as your super is not actually that great for this encounter. But that is how those debuffs work. Long story short, don't stack Melting Point and Shadow Shot because they don't stack, and it'll be a waste. Rotating debuffs might not be hugely important now, especially for something like Golgoroth, but I have a feeling for hard mode it'll be much more crucial, so get to practicing. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hey guys, welcome to another Destiny Mythbusters, where today I want to clear the air about Weapon of Dawn. We're starting strong today, everybody.